Hi everyone, I am Hayley Hoffman, the founder and CEO of Dandi Day, and it is a fabulous Friday. We are here with Ilia Dickey, who is she's one of our collaborative partners, but she is also the founder and CEO of Centerpeace. So I'm just going to read this right here. Centerpeace is a company that is a public benefit corporation focused on integrated learning and personal development for individuals, businesses, and communities to promote a more mindful and compassionate world. So, Ilia, thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of this. The Fabulous Fridays are really started to help support innovators and entrepreneurs as they are, trying to make their dreams become a reality. And they needed a safe place to do that. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you, and if you will please share with us what you're going to be talking about today, that would be awesome.
Thank you, Hayley. I'm so excited to be here today. What a privilege this is. I really admire you and what you're doing and trying to bring people together in a safe place to kind of motivate their heart's passion. And as you know, I'm very passionate myself about making these tools super accessible and non-intimidating because they're a little different than what we're used to using in the world that we live in. But they're loaded with gifts, and I'm really excited to share one of the grounding exercises. It's like my go-to, and maybe I can encourage some of your viewers to consider checking in like this every so often. It doesn't take very long. It is called the quadrinity check, and it might feel a little funny initially because you're kind of reflecting on yourself in a way that we typically don't. We always relate to the world in an outward way, and this is a way to relate to the world by listening in. So I would just, it was a little strange for me when I first learned it until it started reaping these incredible benefits and this information that I stuck to it, and now it's my go-to. It's called the quadrinity check because it is checking in on the 4 parts, and Bob Hoffman created this process that breaks down an individual in 4 dimensions. So we'll go ahead and try it, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. Okay, so let's start.
Stop sharing my camera then, so we can focus on you.
Perfect. So, hi everyone. So what we can do, first thing, just like any of these grounding exercises, it's important to kind of get where you are. Locate yourself. If you're sitting on a chair or you're laying down, just take a few deep breaths, and if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. And take those deep breaths, starting by exhaling through your nose. And inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth about 3 times. And I know all of us have all kinds of things swirling in our minds, and trying to quiet our minds is difficult in the middle of the day, but it really is a gift. And to that end, would you sit up straight and imagine that you're about to receive a gift from one of your favorite places? And try to feel your body as you breathe in and out. And notice your feet. Are they planted on the ground? Do you feel any sensations on your legs? Is it warm? They're tingling. Scanning up your body to where you're sitting. Can you feel that your legs up against the chair that you're sitting on? Just notice it. If you find yourself distracted, it's okay. Just gently bring yourself back and tune into your body. Continuing to breathe in and out. Keep scanning up your body and then think about all the things that your body does for you, how it's a source of wisdom, tells you if you have energy. It communicates pain or discomfort. Just notice, what is your body telling you just this moment? Just notice it. What does it feel like to listen to your body? Can you think of all the good things your body does for you every day? It tells you when you're hungry. It gives you signals when you're tired. Take a moment and thank your body for all it does for you. And then ask your body what it needs from you in this moment. Just listen and notice what it feels like to listen to your body. Now, change your focus to your emotions. Another part of our quadrinity. Our emotions are the source of our feelings. How are you feeling today or this moment? Is there a word that you can think of that describes what you're feeling in this moment? Think about all the beautiful things that your emotional self does for you. It's the source of your love and forgiveness and your compassion. It's also loaded with wisdom. It tells you when you might be fearful or sad. Take a moment to thank your emotional self for all that it does for you. Notice what it feels like to listen to this aspect of yourself. How old is your emotional self right now? Sometimes the emotional self can regress in age, and that's okay. Mindfulness is just noticing this and gently bringing yourself back to the age you are. Continuing to breathe, take a moment to pay attention to your intellect. You know, that taskmaster inside each of us, the one that keeps us checking off that to-do list. Think of all the things that our intellect does for us. It tells us what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what we can do, what we can't do. Just take a moment and listen to what your intellect is telling you right now. Don't judge it. Don't judge it. Just notice it. Take a moment to feel some gratitude towards your intellect for all it does for you. And then ask your intellect what it needs from you today. It might be it just needs to be heard. Just acknowledge it and notice what it feels like to listen to your intellect. And now take another deep breath and tune into your spiritual self. The spiritual self is the source of wisdom and intuition and strength. It might be a place that's larger than ourselves. Can you tune in to that spiritual self within you and see if it has a message for you today? Just tune in. And if you get distracted, just gently bring yourself back and try to tune into your spiritual self. Taking a few deep breaths. You can begin to open your eyes slowly. And what's so powerful about this quadrinity check is the information that you learn about yourself comes through these different dimensions. And it always helps me to jot down or note what I learned through that check-in. I realized that during that check-in for myself that I probably need some nourishment because my stomach was grumbling. But it really is a different and unique way to check in with these different dimensions of ourselves. And so often we're so singularly dimensional in terms of our well-being, and really we don't listen to our whole mind. Our whole mind is not only our brain, it is comprised of our body and our emotions, and even that intuition. We almost take that for granted. So being intentional about tuning in to each of those dimensions has really been super powerful to me, and it is my go-to grounding exercise. So Hayley is going to share that script with you, and after a while, you'll get the hang of it. You tune into each of those dimensions. You think about a few things you're grateful for in terms of those dimensions. And then you listen to see what each of those dimensions is trying to tell you. And it's all based on brain science, and having those different dynamics can open up a space and lend all kinds of insights. Thanks, Hayley. You just popped up the handout. This is great.
Yes, this is the quadrinity check.
Thank you. So this quadrinity check was developed by a gentleman by the name of Bob Hoffman. And I learned about the quadrinity check when I went to the Hoffman Institute, a really cool process that anybody can enroll in, and they have locations all over the country. It's called hoffmaninstitute.org. And it was a new way to check in and get grounded. And what Bob believes, and he's helped many people with emotional intelligence and family of origin, learning about where some of our patterns derive. And their organization has been around about 60 years. Anyway, he believes that the quadrinity check, as he describes it, includes 4 aspects of a human being: the emotional self, the physical self, the spiritual self, and the intellectual self. Yep. So can you scroll that up a little, Hayley? So what I've done in this presentation is I've just gone a little deeper into each of those aspects. And when you start looking at the communication within yourself, you might consider reading through these and saying, oh, When it comes to my physical self, when I have anxiety, I might feel something in my throat or in my chest. And that in of itself is a silo of information for us to tune into. And then, and oftentimes, there are different types of messages that you can tune into, and some of those, like the negative patterns, might be that you're, I don't know if I can see this, Haley, a little higher. Yeah, that sometimes we're pretty rigid on ourselves, or we have anxiety. Those are some of the things that our physical self can, our that physical aspect of ourself can help us identify. Well, then we have the intellect, which is kind of the logical, rational dimension that Bob believes each of us has. And it's where we process our thoughts, and it's where we hear that you should and you shouldn't little voice in our heads. It's where maybe our values and beliefs are grounded. And it is being true to itself when it's knowledgeable and rational, but it can become negative when it begins to be judgmental. This part of ourselves is full of shoulds. That's what I like to say, that when I'm shoulding myself, my intellect is in on its best behavior. But when I'm being more inventive and compassionate with myself, I know that I'm in my best intellectual self. Scroll up to the next one. Yeah, this is a big one. Emotional self is so fascinating. For many people, the intellect, especially in Western society, tends to run the show because we're a very intellectually driven populace, especially on the West, in the Western Hemisphere. And there's also a lot of emotion that we communicate through in the Western Hemisphere more than ever. And oftentimes, historically, there's not been any much value placed in feelings until we began to understand the wisdom and the power in understanding how to tune into our feelings and how they were trying to tell us something. So tuning into our emotional selves doesn't mean that you're emotional and that emotional isn't a bad thing. As a matter of fact, the more knowledgeable you are about the emotions you're having, and if you can coin a word to the emotion you're feeling, that's what you call emotional intelligence. And to really be able to tune into your own, awareness, this is one of those touch points that's easier to access for some people and not so easy for others. So it just takes practice. And negative patterns oftentimes manifest themselves when you're kind of feeling confused, or you're beating yourself up, or you're feeling less than. But when you're authentic in your emotions, there's no tension in your body. It's feeling pretty good. You don't feel sad. So, just noting it, not judging it, being, being in the negative side doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's information for you to use as you move forward in the day. And then finally, our intuitive and spiritual self is actually something that's always with us. And it's not spiritual in terms of religion. It's just the sense of knowing. It's our gut sense, that feeling of like, if I quiet everything else and I give myself enough time to listen to my gut, to my personal wisdom, what message does it have for me? And just doing this check-in, I do it maybe twice a day sometimes. Just close my eyes for a second and I just talk to those four parts of me. They give me a little piece of information, a little bit of a nugget of wisdom, and then I'm able to go about my day just more informed about where I am in that moment. So I hope that helps, Haley. And of course, if anybody has any questions, I'm available, and you can forward that information.
Thank you so much, Ilia.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
Oh, well, I think just some observations. I was trying to get grounded as I'm here and my children are all around. And so I was going back and forth, but trying to, I think even in that grounding exercise, I love those check-ins, right? And I think we often forget that we have different parts of ourselves And I know for me, as I was listening to you and going through this grounding exercise that we've done together many times, but it's always kind of my emotional self. I think it's the one for me that's the loudest. And like listening, I think when I started doing these kinds of check-ins and getting this exposure to these types of practices, and then when I started listening to those different parts of myself and realizing that my emotional self is a bigger portion of what I listen to, and then I started observing like, oh, maybe that emotional self is a little negative, and then I realized, oh, that negative emotional self is what's guiding me or leading me in different decisions. And then when I was able to observe that in a non-judgmental way, as you talked about in this exercise, it was really eye-opening to me, like, oh, I had no idea that I did that. I had no idea that was really driving me in a huge part, the way that I was showing up to myself, to my family, in the workplace. And so I think it's exercises like this that are really key to be able to move us to progress, right? To show up in that progress in being, as in being like
Maybe
our whole
like
self.
more authentic, right? Like you want to be more
Yeah,
authentic. It's
yes.
tuning into what your truth is. And I love what you said, Haley. It's information that we don't often know we have right at our fingertips because we're always looking out away from us for information. And so much resides in us. And if we tune into the information that this, you know, powerful body and spirit and that we have provides initially, then we can proceed with more intentionality. And I tell you that it's not an easy process to practice these because they're new. It's like anything. It's like trying kickboxing for the first time. You got to get there. And then you might have to go another 3 times because you know it's not going to be fun the first few times. But when you start seeing kind of the gifts and just like that noticing, those gifts work for you and they pay dividends in your daily life with your family at work and even with how you feel at the end of the day. So I just would encourage all your viewers to give these things a try. And it takes a couple more times. It takes a few times. It's like going to a kickboxing class, I like to say. Not going to be comfortable the first couple of times. And then you're going to feel super strong.
Yeah, I felt a little weird when I first started doing it. That's for sure. About 18 months ago. But even in that, I realized like, oh, why do I feel weird? Like, what's to feel weird about? And then, but I can attest like the amount of growth. It's it's really cool. So, I thank you so much for spending this time with our community, with the Dandy Day community. It's just means a lot to me. And I know to everyone who's going to be watching this, something new to try, to implement, to explore. And I think as innovators, we're always exploring new things. So there are a couple of handouts. The check-in that we have up. So you can, if you go over onto the side, your sidebar, you can, there's the quad check Hoffman, there's two different ones. So please download those and have them handy for you to try this exercise in the future. And Ilia Dickey is one of our collaborative partners, so you can find her on our website. You can find her on her website too, and she'd be happy to work with you. So
Thank you, Haley. I appreciate the opportunity and good luck, everyone. I love what you're doing and keep leading authentically.
thank you. Thank you. Bye. Make it a great day, everyone.